U.S. President Donald Trump has been ratcheting up his rhetoric against various media outlets this week. Yesterday, the president found out that his $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times was thrown out of court by a judge, but he has been marking the indefinite suspension of late-night talk show host Jimmy Kimmel. Joining me now to discuss this a little bit more is political analyst Michael Fauntroy. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning.
Listen, we've talked about this a little bit, and I think that there is some irony in the fact that Donald Trump is talking about honesty and integrity. But from, we get into the significance of some of this rhetoric and we get into it. What do you make of what we've seen from Donald Trump over the last week, in particular of that suspension of Jimmy Kimmel?
Well, we're not even 9 full months into his return to the White House. And I think what we're seeing is an accelerated attack on all of the institutions that make up America that he doesn't like. And what we're seeing right now is not just a crackdown on free speech, and it is, but we're also seeing a crackdown on accountability. Our media, news operations, and satirical comedians at some level help bring accountability for and to those who are in power. Speaking truth to power is a really big deal in the United States, and if you can't do that because the government may come after you, then it has a chilling effect on all of us. It makes it more difficult for us to even seek the accountability that we need from our government, because when the government is unaccountable, it can go run rogue and run roughshod over the people. And I think that's at the root of a lot of what we're concerned about here.
We talk about, too, and Trump has long railed on late night talk show hosts and what they have, how they view him, the types of shots that they have taken at him at different points. But I watched an interesting clip with Jon Stewart not too long ago that, in this lead up and down this slippery slope, some of the first to be targeted are comedians. And here we go with Jimmy Kimmel and the show and what's happening with the FCC and some of the other factors in all of this. But as we start to slip slowly down, autocracy starts to come to mind for people. How much does that and should that scare not only Americans, but possibly Canadians, even Mexicans, as we watch what's happening?
Yeah, well, so I think that point is very well taken. It's easy to dismiss comedians at some level, right? But the fact is that many of them are brave and insightful and willing to speak truth to power. And I think that as it relates to what's going on right now, President Trump seems to think that anything that's critical of him is untrue, and anything positive about him, even if it is false, is actually true. And that's dangerous. And that's something I think we as a country, regardless of our ideological perspectives, need to rally around. Because one day there will be a Democratic president and a democratically controlled House and Senate. And you can't have a situation in which our free speech is modulated one way or the other, depending on who's in control of the government.
And do you think, too, as we start to talk about some of these changes, right, at the FCC, otherwise, and in other parts of government, and how difficult some of those might be to undo if and when a Democrat does get into the White House?
Well, yes. Some of these changes, and this happens with every presidency, some of the changes that happen take a lot longer to undo than those who don't like those policies might think. And we're seeing a lot of that here. And unfortunately, there are substantial critical masses of majorities in both the House and the Senate who seem to be going along with it and seem to be fine with it as long as they aren't injured. The problem is eventually autocracies come for everybody who are even slightly out of line with them. And that's really problematic, again, for the country going forward.
Political analyst Michael Fauntroy, appreciate your time with us today. Thank you for this.
My pleasure. Thank you.